This season has had it all. Desperation.
That's an incredible smash to start this race.
Domination.
The winners, Mark Scape and Jeff Richards.
Determination.
Oh, I love winning, yes.
But it's been one full year since we've seen this kind of Kiwi jubilation.
Yes! Yes! Woo!
We're back at the track where Greg Murphy sent the Kiwis crazy with 3 out of 3. It's the only international stop in the series. Round 12 of the V8 Supercar Championship, direct from Pukekohe Park Raceway, New Zealand.
It is a city that carries so much sporting history, especially on the water, where the fight for the famous America's Cup is firing up once again in Auckland. But if you go about 40 minutes south, you'll come to a place called Pukekohe, where here you will find a track that has 40 years of motorsport history. Let's check out the weather, because the V8s could be racing in the rain today. Occasional showers, a maximum temperature of 20 degrees and gusty westerly winds. Good afternoon, folks. I'm Matthew White and welcome to round 12 of the V8 Supercar Championship. There is so much ahead of us today, but also quite a bit to clean up from race 1 yesterday. Shortly, we'll talk to Dick Johnson and find out exactly what happened to both of his cars. But first, let's check out what's coming up.
The Trans-Tasman Test is about to get tougher. Today, the final 2 races, 150 kilometres each, 160 points maximum on offer. Mark Scape is taking aim at his 8th round win of the season, but the crowd is calling for a Kiwi comeback. It's another Supercar Sunday on 10.
And in fact, it could be a soggy Supercar Sunday on 10. Just recapping what happened in race 1 yesterday, Mark Scape was the victor, but Dick Johnson Racing really were the vanquished, because both cars ended up into the wall, cars 17 and 18. What happened, Dick?
Well, as I say, it's a little unclear at this point in time. We're still going through the data and what we have available to us in television footage, etc., just to ascertain properly exactly how the whole thing started, and we certainly know where it ended up, but at this point in time, it's a little unclear.
It is a team manager's, team owner's worst nightmare. Look at this, both of your cars into the wall. Now, Dick, it appears as though no other cars were involved in that.
No, it doesn't appear as though there's been any other cars involved. I think the 2 of them touched around there, and I think the 17 car got a flat tyre, and the 18 car, similar situation, and because you don't realise these cars accelerate very, very quickly, and you're doing, you know, in excess of 200 k's there, so it's a fairly heavy shunt.
Keep your chin up, mate. It's been a tough year, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been a tough year, but we've been down before, and we'll get back.
All right, well, good luck for the rest of the day with just Paul Radicic in that is out of that race, by the way, and Stephen Johnson is the sole remaining Shell Helix car for races 2 and 3. It is a tough place to race, tough on the drivers, tough on the teams, tough on everybody. Let's check in with the rest of our commentary team and start with Mark Osler. Mark?
Matty, in yesterday's top 10 qualifying shootout, David Bernard was in spectacular form, manhandling the Caltex Haviland Ford around the Pukekohe Raceway to grab a front row starting grid alongside Mark Scape. You know, the difference in those times was only 0.3 of a second, but it all came to naught in race 1 when David came in to make his compulsory tyre change. Across the thread during the stop meant he spent 8 seconds longer than he needed to be in pit lane. And that almost put him down a lap, and he finished up a lowly 13th position. What that pit stop proves is that V8 Supercar Racing is very much a team sport, where the wheel-changing guys play just as much a part in winning a race as the driver does. You know, one little fumble here in pit lane can make or break a V8 Supercar race.
Yesterday, Cameron McConville gave us a pretty graphic reminder of the dangers involved in a pit stop. An engine backfire caused flames inside the airbox of the LANSVALE Commodore, which took hold and caused a mobile barbecue. So what caused the backfire. It's imperative for a driver to judge the right level of throttle position when the 40km/h speed limiter is engaged. Anything greater than 15% is too much and invariably results in the engine flooding itself with fuel, which is a potentially hazardous situation when the car is restricted from using it. So with such a long pit lane here at Pukekohe, it's imperative the drivers keep that in mind.
Yesterday, the top contenders were complaining of severe tyre punishment. It will be harder today because the races are longer. This may be the shortest track in the series, but it's also the most demanding on the tyres. It's the only place other than Bathurst where the cars bottom out, and it has the tightest corner of them all. A hairpin where the rubber is ripped up as the drivers try and put that 600 horsepower down to the ground. The rain could change that today. That's where they'll opt for one of these, a wet weather tyre. But regardless of the selection, it will be icy racing here today.
Yes, tyre troubles, pit lane perils and worries about the weather. There is so much ahead of us today here in the V8 International. Stick around because after the break, we are ready to go racing at Pukekohe. Stay with us.
It looks straightforward, but Pukekohe can be deceiving and difficult. The track is built for speed, but with only 7 turns, passing must be precise. It's a 2.82km circuit. The V8's hitting more than 260 k's an hour down the main straight. Todd Kelly holds the lap record at just under 58 seconds. His teammate and defending champ here, Greg Murphy, has the inside line.
Welcome aboard the KMART car for the KMART inside line here at Pukekohe. Home racetrack for G. Murphy. Round turn 1, very, very fast this corner as we head down to the little tricky S section leading onto the back straight. Second gear onto the back straight. So important to get a good run around here as this straight is a 1km long straight. Up to 6th gear through the gearbox. 270, 275 k's into a first gear hairpin. Bit of a kink in it, but it's super wide. Up onto the rev limiter, hard on the brakes. Down the gearbox, all the way down to 1st or 2nd gear. Good passing opportunity there too. Out of there, accelerating hard. Again, very important to get good drive up to 4th. 5th gear, as I said, it's quite short, but it's still very tricky. And up over the hill, down the front straight. The lap's nearly over, hard on the gas. That is a lap of Pukekohe. I hope you enjoyed it.
The air show is underway, which means that the countdown is underway to the Boost prepaid mobile V8 International. What a spectacular sight. I think we'll see some twists and turns throughout the course of the next 54 laps when we get back down to ground level and see that 31 cars now are lining up on the grid. So much importance placed on tyre preservation around here because this circuit is so bumpy, so twisty and so hard to keep the car down. We've got a bit of a comparison to do for you on the final turn. Now this is Greg Murphy, car number 51 going through.
Yeah, what it shows you is how hard that chassis is working, bumping and moving around all over the road. Now look at Mark Scaife here. The bump and rebound control on those shock absorbers, quite extraordinary. Look how smooth it goes through those areas. Much easier on the tyres, much more power going to the road, much more speed. Yeah, it's quite a graphic description, isn't it, of what they're all trying to have at the back of their car. They're trying to stick like glue, as Mark Osler said to us earlier. The magic carpet ride, it appears as though Mark Scaife has got through that. So they head out now on the warm-up lap, but earlier this morning in warm-up conditions when it was a little bit cooler, this is on board with Marcus Ambrose. He went off at turn 1. Oh, that's how he finished up. No major damage done to that car. That was actually the turn that you see right there where he ended up going through. So what it shows is once you get off that track, you're not going to stop until you hit something. Our starting grid for race 2 of the Boost Mobile V8 International has Scaife versus Murphy at the front of the grid. Then it's Ambrose and Jason Bright, positions 3 and 4. We go back to 5 and 6. Todd Kelly from the KMART Racing team against Stephen Richards. 7th is the youngster Rick Kelly, and then Craig Lowndes in 8th. Brad Jones and Russell Ingall round out our top 10 starters. Wilson and John Bower Those yellow boxes down the right-hand side of the Nintendo starting grid tell you where the cars qualified, and so you can see how they're progressing throughout the weekend. Crompton did well, 27th up to 15th in race 1.
Jason Bargwanna there in 19th position, so he made up 10 positions from race 1 to this starting effort. Paul Wheel will start from 21. Cameron McLean, the VIP Pet Foods racer, out of 22. Down the back of the field is where you find Garth Tander, position number 28. Seton there in 26. And if we go over that page, Stephen Johnson will start from last on the grid after failing to complete 1 lap in race 1. Grant Denyer in pit lane. Yeah, there's some concern over the grid at the moment. Those who might be lining up on the left-hand side could be at a disadvantage because of some debris that's been left by the previous support categories. It appears there's a line of oil there. They've put down some powder to try and soak up some of that oil, but there's still a fair trail of debris, and I know that Craig Lowndes is going to place his car a little bit differently on the grid to try and change the angle of attack so he doesn't drive straight through it as he's trying to put the power down. But those on the left-hand side really have a lot of muck to drive through.
Yeah, this big crowd warming up as the cars come out for race 2. It's a longer distance, this one, 54 laps. 150 kilometres in distance. Dunlop in-car camera, Russell Ingall, the enforcer.
Starting back from 10th on the grid in his second last drive for the Castrol Perkins race team.
Gallery's back in 17th spot in the Super Cheap Autos Ford. Marcus Ambrose, we saw him in trouble in the warm-up this morning. The Strathfield in-car camera. Ambrose will leap off 3rd position on the grid. Stephen Johnson, the man who was in the middle of that disastrous crash on turn 1 with his teammate Paul Radicic. Radicic is out of the event, the car too badly damaged.
And look where Johnson starts from way back, right back at the grid, over the back of Ford Mountain. The Ford in-car camera of Craig Lowndes already working out his starting strategy. He takes a look over to see Rick Kelly right next to him. That's position 8, looking over at 7. And, of course, Greg Murphy on the front row of the grid. He's desperate to get a race win here. 3 out of 3 last year, pole position and the round win overall. But his thunder's been stolen by that man, Mark Skaife. Car number 1 took out pole here, took out race 1 here. He is trying to do a Murphy. We're ready to get underway. 31 starters. We got 54 laps. That's 150 Ks around this incredibly fast and tricky circuit. Well, Skaife got off to a good one. Murphy's going to slot in beside him. What about some trouble down the back? Nothing there at the moment. Car number 1 goes through. Murphy lets him move. Going wide is Russell Ingall and Stephen Richards also. So a good move from the Castrol teams. Cleanly through turns 1 and 2 at the moment. Nobody in any trouble.
Terrible start for Marcus Ambrose. He got the short back and sides coming off the grid there. Lost a few positions after starting off 3rd. He'll be kicking himself. He's gone back into the queue. Down the back straight for the first time. Skaife leads the charge. 270 kilometres an hour on the approach to the hairpin. Skaife goes very deep under brakes right out toward the white line. Takes a very different line into the hairpin compared to anyone else here. Whoa, a bit of a nudge back in the pack.
Oh, 3 ways, and look who loses out of that one. Craig Lowndes was at the top of that queue. There was 3 cars behind him. They're all concertinaed into each other, and the loser was the man at the front of it.
Come on, mate, settle into a rhythm.
Goes right to the back of the pack and then some. You can see Stephen Johnson, who started off last position on the grid, is in front of Lowndes by a good 150 metres, so he's got a lot of work to do. Skaife, Greg Murphy, Jason Bright, there's Todd Kelly, Stephen Richards, Marcus Ambrose back there now with Rick Kelly breathing down his neck. Brad Jones in 8th, Russell Ingall, Richards in 10th. Great job by the Team Kiwi boys to be in the top 10.
Down that back straight, up to 260, 270 Ks an hour. This is a good little battle here. Richards goes on the inside of Todd Kelly and gets him at the hairpin. So Richards shoots out ahead of the KMART racer. And that was for position 4, so good effort from Stephen Richards. And look at the sunshine bearing down on us. The clouds are still there. There is still the threat of rain because the weather can change here in a flash.
Well, the big gamble here is how long do these guys stay out on their first set of tyres? As we saw that report earlier with Grant Denyer, this place is very hard on rubber. So everyone's going to try and maximise the amount of time they're out on that first set of tyres
to minimise the time they've got to run on the second set. But no one wants to throw or play the dice with the safety car. Keep in mind, you cannot pit to make your compulsory stop under safety car conditions.
Craig Bird, this developmental year for Team Brock has dealt a cruel hand once again.
Yeah, it has, mate. Looks like we've dropped a valve or something in the engine. Yeah, hard to say what it is, but certainly not running on all cylinders. So park it and see if we can fix it for the next one.
Yeah, hard luck you're not a part of it. Thanks, Craig.
Well, bad day for Craig Baird and Team Brock. Get back to our leading bunch. Here's Marcus Ambrose. Breathing down the neck of Todd Kelly. This is the battle for 5th place, and this is looking at the Lowndes incident on a Nintendo replay. Who gives him a serve? Looks like it might have been Brad Jones. Car 0-2-1. Right in the middle of the pack there. And you can see Lowndes went right to...
A different angle of that.
There's one on the inside, one of the Castrol Commodores. Could have been one of the Castrol Commodores. So look at that from a few different angles. Let's have a look at this from this side.
Yeah,
well,
definitely the Castrol car did it.
My apologies to Brad Jones. Didn't see the Castrol car down the inside on that first shot, but on the outside, very clear.
Well, Jones was trying to get out of the way of all that mess, and as they bunched up behind him, the big loser was Lowndes. Cameron McLean in and out of the pits.
Coming in for their, well, the first car's coming in there for compulsory stops. Fastest lap of the race so far, a 58.03 from Scape, so he's back into it. His fastest lap, or his last lap out there yesterday was a 58.2.
Junior Johnson was in a hurry as well, so Johnson goes out in 17. McLean in the VIP car goes out in 40, and McConville, who got stuck there with a bit of a fire yesterday, goes out as well. Contact at turn 1 between Ambrose and Kelly. This fight is really on.
Despite a strong qualifying performance from David Bernard, trouble has struck during this race. His car is stuck in gear and it's forcing him to pit early. This wasn't the plan for car number 9.
No, all sorts of strategy going out the window as we go back on board with Marcus Ambrose. This is the battle for 5th. Todd Kelly in 5th, Ambrose in 6th, tries a run at the KMART car. With no room down there on the inside, goes very deep under brakes, does he? Sees an opportunity and goes through in the Pertec Ford. 58.03, the fastest lap in the race so far. Kelly peels off to take his compulsory stop. As Ambrose continues. The Ford, I was talking to him this morning in the pits, he said after about 7 laps, particularly the rear tyres, starting to really feel the pinch, so they're going to try and get in the middle of that in terms of strategy to try and maximise the use of their first set.
They're working frantically down here, guys, on David Bernard's car. It looks like they're going to try and take the whole shifter arrangement out because it's stuck in gear. So a frustrating time for David Bernard. Can also tell you, track temperature has gone up by around 5 degrees in the last 20 minutes. It's now ambient-wise 22 degrees, but 32 on track. There is a break in the cloud cover, but what we have seen over the last few days here is that the UV penetration on this circuit doesn't make a huge difference at times like this.
You just saw Todd Kelly lose that position to Marcus Ambrose. He has been complaining that he just can't get onto the back straight. It's kind of a funny thing. He wants to swap ends, it won't turn in. And then once he does get it to turn in, it wants to oversteer. And that's how he's losing his speed down the main straight. And Marcus slipped through just at his pit stop. Everything okay now.
Here's Murphy.
Same complaint everyone's had around here, getting temperature into the front tyres to get the car to turn in. A lot of teams tending to make the rear of the car looser to make the car turn in, but as a result that starts to cook the rear tyres. A lot of teams complaining about that setup, be they Commodore or Falcon runners. The only man who doesn't seem to be having any sort of chassis balance problems is Mark Scaife. He has been the dominant force all weekend. 3.5 seconds now, the lead over Greg Murphy. Scaife really grinding them into submission early in race 2.
What about that nose-to-tail play there from Murphy on Max Wilson as we go on board with KMART number 51 at the hairpin. Ducks in behind. Wilson takes a wider line now. Up to turns 6 and 7. A little switchback. Murphy's pulled off into pit lane, so Wilson continues to go through, and Greg Murphy
Stop on the ball. Let's get you in a good stop.
goes back to 40 Ks, and this will be vital. We always talk about this team. Mark Scaife has gone in front of him, I think. Yep, car number 1. They're at opposite ends of pit lane. Our reporters are down there. Let's check out Murphy's stop.
Well, for Greg Murphy, you couldn't hope for a better bunch of blokes to change your tyres because they're some of the fastest in the field. Murphy, although not that happy with this setup, it was a good stop. But he's gone for more of a Todd Kelly setup here to hopefully improve his chances.
Oh, that was a quick stop. Let's see how quick HRT can turn this car around. Rusty?
This is the race, guys. They've got the rear tyres going on now. Mark Scaife standing by to take off. Greg Murphy coming down pit lane. Scaife will get out in front of him.
Wow. And only just two by about 5 or 6 metres in it. As we'll take a look out the rear of car number 1, and he shoots away from Murphy at the exit of pit lane.
How good was that pit work from Holden Racing Team? Turn him around that fast, get him out in front of Murphy. So he should be at the front of the queue of cars that have made their compulsory stops. Scaife's been in, Murphy's been in, Rick Kelly, Todd Kelly, the 4 TWR Commodores now with their compulsory stop out of the way. But a long way to go on their second set of tyres. It's a 54-lapper. They've come in on lap 7. So tyre preservation is going to be the key here. We welcome to the commentary box Paul Radisich. I'm sure you'd rather be out there in the Shell Ford.
I probably would, Mark, but yesterday just got a little caught out on the start line there, and 5 cars into one corner didn't work, and unfortunately I come out a little worse off.
Daryl?
Ross, what's the David Bernard? David had a problem and Marcus wanted to come in.
Yeah, well, Marcus was getting held up, and David's stuck in gear. Just had to whip the gearbox out, whip the gear lever out to do. I don't know what's gone wrong there, but he's away now. But as I say, Marcus was held up, and we had to bring him in a bit earlier than we wanted.
Thanks, mate.
Guys, it's amazing just how much fractions of a second in pit lane can make a difference to your position on track. When Jason Bright and Stephen Richards came in, they were one behind the other during the pit stop. When Bright came down off the jacks, unfortunately his car stalled. He fired it up again very quickly, but the Castrol pit are one behind HRT. It enabled Stephen Richards to get past him in pit lane.
Only takes a fraction of a second. This could be Russell Ingall.
Just a drive-through short.
Serving his drive-through penalty. And it's a long, long trickle down pit lane, 45 seconds plus. Massive effect on your race strategy. Continuing, or considering a lap is about 57, 58 seconds around here. You can see you go almost a lap when you serve a drive-through. Very, very costly for Russell Ingall.
Jason Richards is in and out. As we go back on board with the enforcer. He served his penalty. He's back out there now, lap 10 of 54.
We're just finding out from race control why he was served with a drive-through penalty. We'll get that to you as soon as we know. But you can see he slipped right down the order now. Fastest lap of the race, Scaife on his fresh set of tyres, a 57.92. So everyone else operating in the 58s or higher, Scaife is the only man at the moment who has dipped into the 57s. Look at this different line that he takes through the hairpin. He takes the car as long as he can right out to the white line, then turns it on a dime and then points it the other direction. Just shows how well this car is behaving, and look at the beautiful ride control with the bumpiest part of the circuit, looking after its tyres magnificently, and his lap times are proof of the pudding.
The officials down here in pit lane have given Russell Ingall that drive-through penalty as a result of the contact with Craig Lowndes down at the hairpin in the early stages of this race. So that's why we saw Russell filing through just moments ago.
Now, we knew it was a Castrol car, and that's just identified which one it was involved in that tangle. The blue boxes on your PlayStation 2 race score indicate that they have completed their compulsory pit stop for tyres. So all these guys have done it. Paul Radisich, this track is so bumpy and so hard. At the start of the show, we mentioned that it was tough on everybody, tough on teams, tough on drivers. You really found out just how tough it was, I guess. But this particular section of the track that Scaife's on now, it's not only quite difficult, but you really need a lot of commitment to take it through there.
Well, the bumps are so, you know, so big, and the speeds are so high that you really got to have great suspension control to be able to take that as fast as you can. And you know, Marcus has dominated the whole weekend. His car looks good, it's going great, and it's the car that's handling the bumps the best. Pukekohe has always been a horsepower circuit. He who has the most horsepower normally does the best. Sure, you've got to have the suspension working with it, but you know, these guys at the moment have got both, and it's showing here.
It is a circuit that is built to show off these V8 Supercars. That's exactly what it's doing. Pukekohe Raceway at round 12 of the V8 Supercar Championship. We'll take a break and come back after this. On the way, let's check out our Shell Helix race score. Jones, Ellery, Tander, Bargwanna, Faulkner, Seton, Larry Perkins and Mark Larkham are the top 8 Those guys are yet to pit, so effectively our race leader will be Mark Skaife. More from the V8 International in New Zealand right after this.